On behalf of Darkness to Light, I would like to commend SCARS Bermuda for their commitment and leadership in safeguarding children. As the first country in the world to train over 10% of adults in Stewards of Children training, Bermuda has established itself as a model for prevention. At Darkness to Light, we believe that you have achieved a social change tipping point in which the courage and skills to keep children safe from sexual abuse has become the expectation and the norm. Your work has been visionary, and your achievement has tremendous implications for the future of children everywhere. I hope that all of you at SCARS in Bermuda know how special and important your work is. Every survivor who has made your voice heard, every leader who has required accountability, and every donor who has made the movement possible, every parent, grandparent, and caring adult who have given of their time and talent, you have made the difference. Together, your efforts ensure a happier and healthier life for children and stronger communities across Bermuda. We commend your leadership and extend our heartfelt thanks. Keep up the good work.
At the tender ages of 9 and 10, 2 little girls were sexually abused by a trusted family member. Shuttling them from Child Protective Services to the police and the Department for Public Prosecution, their mother faced minimization, denial, and a basic lack of education about the traumatic impact of child sexual abuse. Although devastated, a passion for change began to burn inside. What Debbie Ray Rivers discovered was that not nearly enough was being done in her country of Bermuda to prevent the crime of child sexual abuse in families and community environments where it so often takes place. Her search to find a solution led her to U.S.-based Darkness to Light's Stewards of Children, a community-based training that enables everyday adults to prevent child sexual abuse and respond to it. But this is not just Debbie and her children's story. This is the story of how the country of Bermuda banded together across every sector of Bermudian life to become educated about child sexual abuse, to tackle it and end it. And their story is potentially your story. Any nation can prevent sexual abuse of their precious children if only we muster the collective will to do so. Bermuda's story is one approach to that victory. And we say to you, what's yours?
I often ask the question, what's the value of the child? There is no limit on the value of a child.
I think for years people did suffer in silence. They felt like there was nowhere to turn. They couldn't talk to anyone about it.
I don't think anybody walks down the road and says, hey, I'm a survivor. But Debbie, she's taken risks that her risks have given many of us permission to be honest with ourselves. And so I'm a survivor. And it's okay.
The pain that I felt from knowing that my children were harmed by a trusted family member was really the darkest day of my life. And I remember being in my kitchen and crying out to God and saying, why? How? The truth is, God was my first love as a little girl, but somehow I moved away from him over the years, I think through my own pain and anger at him. And on this day, a voice said, find a Bible. And I went through a few drawers and I found one. Brought it into the kitchen, laid it on the table, opened it to the middle of the Bible. I looked down at one verse and it said, I am here for all who need me and call upon me. I hear your cries and I will destroy the wicked. And I knew at that point that all was going to be well. it was going to be okay, that God was okay with me. Because as a mother who didn't protect her children, there is just this incomprehensible guilt. But what God did to me that morning was have me look also at my own life and the poor choices and decisions that I had made. You see, I had made some really bad choices in my life. They turned out to be wonderful, but I hurt a lot of people along the way. And God had me look at that and look at myself, and what He said to me was, I forgive you, it's okay, and I love you, and this is going to be okay. That was the beginning of my journey. It took 7 years to get myself healed and to begin the healing journey for my children. And then I knew in my heart that I had to that I had a calling.
When it comes to child safeguarding, the key, to my mind, is cross-agency working. And cross-agency working, you would think, is very easy in a small community. But in fact, in a small community, strangely enough, that's where personalities become more important. And certainly in the other places I've worked, I've found that where the child safeguarding has fallen down is where the agencies have not been speaking to each other, either because the systems weren't in place or because there were particular personalities who were maybe guarding their turf, not sharing information, and that's when children are more at risk, when that information is not responsibly shared.
And so we made a conscious decision that our success was going to be through collaboration with specific focus on our part of child sexual abuse.
Well, Darkness to Light has a program called Prevent Now. So it was probably John who said, let's take Prevent Now and let's put it in a room with all the key stakeholders. So we invited the Vulnerable Persons Unit of the police, Child Protective Services, other charity organizations that deal with families and children, the Family Center, the Center Against Abuse, the Coalition for the Protection of Children. We invited potential donors. These are all champions that have been in our community fighting for families and children.
By them going through our training, they came to understand what our message was, what our intent was, and I think they saw the uniqueness of what we did versus the services that they provided. And our focus was on prevention. Most of the other organizations are dealing with the aftermath of trauma. We were always trying to get out in front of the issue, and by doing that, it minimizes the stresses on the others.
You know, the idea that no one should have to pay to learn how to protect children. I think that's a really strong philosophy. But this is something that we all should be doing, and that's why SCARS has been really big on not charging people for this. And I think that kind of sets the tone of, that they're here because they are passionate about doing what's right for children, and that they want to work and support other agencies that are doing it. When we did the training for the police, I initially said, but the police have a training budget. Shouldn't they be contributing? Because it costs, quite a bit for the materials that SCARS puts together, and it's constantly looking at how can they fundraise so they don't have to charge people. But I think I was won over by the argument, really, that you don't want to have barriers put in the way. So that meant that the whole police force could be trained without having to look at, oh, well, we can only afford to do this, or this is not a priority for us. I think that sends a powerful message, actually, and it eliminates another barrier.
Child sexual abuse is not necessarily a topic that everyone wants to talk about. But our corporate community recognizes that it is a social issue, that is an issue that impacts beyond just the traumatization of that child, that we literally can see the social issues within our community are too often actually relate to a person who has been abused.
So we don't shy away from activities that are trying to treat or deal with grassroots problems, particularly when they are real and measurable and are causing great difficulties in the local community. They cry out for help, literally.
We felt really strongly and passionate about, let's do something. Our first gift was to sponsor books to go into their library that they could share with children about the subject of sexual abuse, and we had our name and logo put in them. We've funded some ad campaigns that they had. We have funded their event that they did, a big fundraiser at Government House. We were one of the key sponsors on that. We did a kayak around Bermuda, and all of our staff, any donation that they made, we matched. And so for us, it was more about what can we do? How can we play our part in supporting this organization where you have people that are passionate about what they're doing, and you could see the impact they were making very quickly.
So one of the things for SCARS that was vitally important was, number one, a passionate leader, someone who believed in the cause, understood the impact on the community and families, and was willing to share her story. And once you have that person, everything else can fall into place, because passion is contagious. And when you have people who believe in our community, believe in the protection of children, when they meet someone who is passionate about a cause and they have the ability to add to that, they often will. And once that happens, what it means is that one person has now become an army. And that's where you get impact.
Because what Darkness to Light Stewards of Children training has done for SCARS is provide a training curriculum, a tool that can be used to educate all of our adults on our island on sexual abuse prevention. And it's a tool that works. And you know why it works? Because people tell their stories. And we can't dispute experience, ever.
I know people are stunned. Some of them are wiping their tears, or some are walking out and coming right back in. I love being a part of the healing because they feel like me, I know it. When I first walked in and someone said, oh, I'm a survivor, you know, they're probably looking like, are we actually allowed to watch this right now? Like, is this normal? You know, are we allowed to feel this? Is this a normal conversation I can have in this room? You know, is it normal? Is it allowed? You should see some of the faces. They cannot believe it, that this training is actually happening. And I love it because that means we're going to have healthier people walking on the streets.
Anyone who has direct contact with children on an ongoing basis will be trained. So we have all of our educators here in the Adventist system, the academic system. We also have trained all of our youth leaders, all of our children's ministries leaders. We've encouraged training for not only those in direct contact, but our pastors and anyone who holds office that might have influence in the lives of children. That way, it's not only training for those who have direct contact, but also for training for those who make decisions regarding children, trips, location of rooms, how rooms are set up, for example, and the safety in general for our youth and for our children.
It's not a choice for us here at Harrington Sound Primary School. It's not a choice, because at the end of the day, I want to make sure that we are doing everything possible to ensure that our children are safe. And so it was a non-negotiable for me, for this school.
We know our neighbors. Our neighbors end up being our students in our classroom, and so are our cousins. And we're trusted, I believe, as a result. I can walk through buildings right now and children will say, hi, Aunt Terry. Right, and it's okay if Aunt Terry takes you home from school. It's okay if Aunt Terry gave you money. So we want to have people consider what would be safer.
And our staff are buying into that too, you know, that it's non-negotiable. And they say, it's funny, someone said, oh, we have so-and-so, have they been SCARS trained? Like, that's the That's the thing now, you know. Have they been SCARS trained? So the expectations are clear, and everyone is on the same page that we are now in the business of protecting every child in this school.
What I did was actually sat down with the whole crew after they had done SCARS training and went through it with them so that they would identify, so they could respond to things. So for example, is this achievable? Is this possible? Does this make sense? How can we work with this? So there were a couple cases where it was said, I don't see how we can always say that, do that specifically because of the nature of our environment. It's a small ship, but so we modified it so that it would be workable for them, but also still protecting the young person and protecting them.
As an example, training may end at 6 o'clock. It's getting fairly dark early now, but coaches know and the administrators know as well that even though a parent may be a bit late picking up their child, they know that that child and that adult should never be in the same spot at the same time. There's always what we call the tripod effect, where there's a young person and two adults. So we practice that up until today. And the parents love it because it shows the club taking the initiative and trying to protect the children.
Parents now feel more empowered to question how we go about doing certain things. For example, for an after-school tutorial, who will be in that tutorial? Will my child be alone with an adult in that tutorial? We've had parents who say, do the doors stay open during the day in this hallway? They've questioned that. And so that shows that the advocacy, the education is really permeating amongst parents too, and that's awesome.
This one day I dropped him off at a rugby game or practice, and when I went to pick him up after the practice, I was running late, and I was like, okay, come on, let's get in the car. And he stood there and he went, mm-mm. And I was getting cross because I was late, and I'm like, get in the car. And he said, no, because if I get in the car, it means my friend is left by himself with the coach. And it was a real proud mommy moment, even though I was aggravated because I was making time, and I was so proud of him that he got it.
Bermuda, I mean, is a small community, and I would say a small, sophisticated community. And there is, truly one degree of separation, no matter what aspect of Bermuda life you evolve in or live in. And so part of our success is because of that tight network of communities. So for example, we had an opportunity to speak to the governor about the work that we were doing, and I mentioned that we're having a Stewards of Children training the next day, which was a Saturday, and we would love for him to come. But we never thought that he would come. It's the governor, and obviously he has a busy schedule. And to our surprise, on the Saturday, the ADC walked into our room and kind of surveyed the room, I guess, for security purposes, and left. And we were a little bit baffled by what just happened. And then the governor and his wife actually came into the session. And so they sat at the table with all the other participants. And that's just an example of, the size of the community gives you access to the Queen's representative here in Bermuda. His feedback about our training, the Darkness to Light, Stewards of Children, was very warm and appreciative, and he enjoyed the quality and the information that we presented, and they decided to become patrons of the work that we're doing.
I strongly believe that in this fight for our children's future, that men should be leading the way. I know for me personally, when my daughter told me of her situation and what happened to her, when I looked in her eye, when I hugged her as her father and I told her that I believe you, that I trust you, and I know it happened, it made the whole world of difference for her. So, okay, yeah, this bad thing happened to my daughter, but knowing that I loved her unconditionally as her father, knowing that it's not going to change my feelings for her. You know, it's not going to affect our relationship. And even I've seen the growth and maturity in her since it happened. You know, me telling her over and over again, like, this is not the end of your life. You know, you have a whole future ahead. You can push past it. As a father, it could have came from a mother, it could have came from an auntie or another loved one, but coming from me as a father, I think made a big difference. Me speaking, going to the gym and being someone who's physical, lifting weights and flexing muscle, but at the same time can pull someone aside and say, listen, you have a 5-year-old daughter, like, make sure that you are paying attention. I think that speaks volumes. I just think it's vitally important that men take their place,
I liken the church to being kind of like an AA meeting. You know, in AA say, hi, I'm Nick Dill, I'm an alcoholic. But in a church, really, you're saying, hi, I'm Nick Dill, I'm a sinner saved by grace. And I was speaking to somebody who was in AA, and he laughed. He said, the church is not like that. Everyone's pretending that everything is fine. You know, and again, it's part of this owning. You know, where every Sunday we say we are sinners, and we know that this is true. But you know, we say it by rote. We don't actually own it. For some, it's a club. For some of it's an escape. For some, it becomes all kinds of different things. That if you're going to bring this into the mix, that might frighten people, but so what? I mean, it is supposed to be a place of healing. It's supposed to be a place of engagement with the God who made them fearfully and wonderfully, who knows and hears their cries, and who has sent his church to be his hands and his feet, and to bring salt and light into the community, to expose things that are evil and wrong and all that sort of stuff. So the role of the church is huge. We just have to own it and be prepared for the consequences of living out our faith in this way.
First of all, we need to be listening without judging the individual who has been abused, taking their reporting seriously. I mean, it takes a lot for them to be able to disclose and share. And we need to discipline those who are found to be out of line, who are abusing. They need to be disciplined, removed, and reinstatement should not be an option.
So I think the most effective offender management programs, from what I've seen, are those that don't just concentrate on vilifying or excluding the offender, but those that concentrate on mitigating the risk that they present. And to mitigate that risk, that means that when they come out into the community, which most of them will do, there are individuals around them, professionals, family, community, who provide those circles of support so that they, if they show signs of wanting to reoffend, that is picked up quickly and they're prevented from doing so. So I think it's a really important piece, because you can't have a really good child safeguarding mechanism without paying attention to the offenders and making sure that they have the support that they need.
What I also recognised, having done criminal defence work and then representing children who may be the victim of child abuse, is that with perhaps 20 years gap, often they're the same person. So I may be representing a child in child court that's been abused, and their background story looks identical to the person who's being prosecuted 20 years later for offences against children. And so obviously what they have done is monstrous. If they are guilty of the offence, it's horrific what's been done. But we really need to focus on treatment in some way, because at some point the individuals come out of prison. The real way to protect society is to focus on treatment. I can appreciate the desire that certain members of the public may have for retribution, but surely the key is to protect children, and no amount of retribution is really going to stop it from happening again. We have to create treatment that can help these people. And imagine if we could have a system whereby you have someone growing up and they start to recognise that they have an attraction to children, and they feel comfortable to share that with someone because they need help, because they need the treatment. That would be, I think, a wonderful step to have. It's a challenge for society to get to that point where someone would feel that comfortable, but I think it's essential, rather than be reactive, for us to be proactive. I think it would greatly reduce the amount of victims.
inclusive of the increase of the offenses that we've seen and the trend of seeing them younger and younger on the offender side, we began to realize that perhaps there was a gap somewhere between the good work that many of our charities are doing with the adults and the parents and the teachers, perhaps not trickling down to the actual students who don't appreciate that their behavior could be criminal. And so whilst we're very keen to ensure that we have a sex offenders registry that the police have under control and we know who is out there, the last thing that we're trying to do is put 13 and 14-year-olds on it if they don't necessarily have to be.
So we do have some juvenile offenders, and a lot of the times the things that they say is, well, everyone else is doing it. Children, if they're learning that, we have to stop it. So one of the things that we're tasked with is we thought, okay, let's go to the high schools. Let's say to them, this is an offense, this is wrong, you should not be doing this. But we've now realized that we have to go beyond that. We have to start at maybe the middle school level to catch them before it becomes a problem.
And that wouldn't normally be the role of a prosecutor. So we are now trying to sort of prevent having to deal with these things in our day job as well.
So, intervention is also part of policing. So Bermuda Police and Department of Child and Family Services actually have a very healthy relationship. Symbiotic is one way of describing it. And that goes to even diversion as well as prevention. We also have a great relationship with SCARS. Presently, I want to say 75% of the Bermuda Police Service are all SCARS trained. Many in the judiciary are SCARS trained. Many, if not all, in family services, SCARS trained. Our Department of Public Prosecutions, SCARS trained. And so the purpose, and then education, SCARS trained, as well as the PTAs. And part of that is to make sure that it's okay to report. What we find in Bermuda is that every time we actually get a conviction of anything to do with a child that actually hits the headlines, more reports come in because you get public confidence with the convictions. So the courts have to be educated also, which is a major victory for any nation, to have the courts educated in victim protection, as well as victim advocacy, and then convictions.
Particularly in my role, I'm the head of the litigation team. So those counsel who answer directly to me are responsible for the majority of prosecutions. I'm also the senior member of our child safeguarding team, of which Karen is also a member. What that means is that when we do receive a call from the police or the Department of Child and Family Services, there are a list of prosecutors who specifically deal with those types of cases. I would say we were informally put together about 5 or 6 years ago, when sadly there was an increase in the amount of cases. Well, you can say sadly or not sadly, because I do believe that our SCARS program had a lot to do with children feeling comfortable in reporting and adults recognizing those signs in their children. But there was an increase was the result of cases before the court. And so what our office did was we spent time training a few of us, not all of us, to know how to deal with those types of cases. And we also, I myself and another member of our team, Ms. Sofianis, we're part of an umbrella group where Bermuda has put together a child safeguarding, it's called like an oversight group, that involves the Commissioner, Child and Family Services, the Department of Education, our sexual assault response team, nurses. We all meet once a quarter just to discuss where cases are, what we could be doing, and try to do preventative work as well.
And watch us where we go, and help us to be wise in times when we don't know. And let this be our prayer.
Every day we run into adults who have been through it. You know, you talk to someone who's taken the SCARS training and they say, wow, that really revealed something to me that I had suppressed for years. And so it's good that it's bringing it to the surface and now people can actually deal with it. And it helps to heal you. You become whole again. because for so long people have had the fabric of their souls kind of destroyed by this issue. And so SCARS is healing.
And so when I think about where I was 12 years ago and where we are now, like, it doesn't feel like a secret anymore at all. In fact, when I speak publicly about the fact that I'm a survivor of sexual abuse, I'm almost proud that I am, because I can actually help someone else. I can actually give someone else their voice. Every time I say I'm a survivor, it allows somebody else to say that it happened to them. And I feel that I'm no longer a victim, that I have transferred from victim to survivor, and I have healed. But I do have scars, and those scars represent battles that I have fought hard, but that I have won.
When it comes to child sexual abuse, being closely knit can be part of the problem. The shame and secrecy of sexual abuse can snuff out opportunities to talk about it. But Bermuda has turned shame and secrecy on its head and used that 1 degree of separation to create rapid change. Today, SCARS is a household name, and Bermuda is saving children and revealing secrets. Having trained over 10% of adults, Bermuda has achieved a social change tipping point. Child safeguarding is this country's expectation and its mission. And we won't stop until every adult hears this message.
There are children to save and secrets to reveal. Is our chance to be brave and our time to heal. We have scars, yes, we have scars, but we're here to stop the violence. We have scars, yes, we have scars, but we're here to break the silence. Together we can heal ourselves from our scars. We have scars, yes, we have scars, but we're here to stop the violence. We have scars, yes, we have scars, but we're here to break the silence. Together we can heal ourselves from our scars. We have scars, yes, we have scars, but we're here to stop the violence. We have scars, yes, we have scars, but we're here to break the silence. Together we can heal ourselves from our